So thank you very much for coming, and then thank you for having me today on this activity. I'm very, very glad to see you today to talk about narrative inquiry or to talk about things that I know related to critical qualitative methodology, which is specifically focusing on narrative inquiry. All right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, could you see my slide?
Yes.
Yes, all right. So here we go. So making use of stories for English language education research. Ladies and gentlemen, remember that you are probably coming from non-English departments, English department study program, for example. Maybe some of you are coming from general language education programs, but no worries. I'm going to talk more about the use of stories or narrative inquiry, which is applicable for teacher education programs, which is also applicable for general language education, and of course for English language education. And then here you go, you can see the slide with a very, very exceptional scholars from A, B, C, and D. I think some of you know these scholars, but I think some of you might not know these scholars. So can I ask everyone here? Sorry? All right. Okay, sorry. All right. So everything is fine now?
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Okay.
Would you please make it full screen, Pak Farouk?
Right. So wait a minute. Oh, the company, could you please help me?
Ini yang di share screen. Nomor di seleksi itu.
Kindly wait, dear participants. There's still a technical problem. A little technical problem. Yes.
You are still muted.
Pak Farouk, can you please unmute, your microphone, please?
Please unmute.
So is everything okay now?
Yes.
Yes, all right. Thank you. Thank you for the committee. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to talk about the use of stories for language education research, actually. So, but no worries, if you are coming from English language education, then I'm going also to talk about that. All right. So I'm introducing you to some scholars on the slide. Take a look at this one from A, B, C, D. Everyone, could you please answer who is A, who is B, who is C, and who is D? Can everyone Or can anyone answer this, please?
Yeah, maybe D, Akbar Hussain.
Yeah. Professor Gary Barkusen is a very, very well-known scholar. What about the other ones? Can anyone answer this?
In the chat, there's an answer, Pak Farooq. A is John Dewey.
Okay. What about the A? Who is he? All right, so no worries. I'm going to give you the answers at the end of my talk today, ladies and gentlemen. So before I give the talk, I'd like to introduce my affiliation, my institution. If you are master graduate students, or if you are undergraduate student and you are currently planning to continue your postgraduate program, I suggest you consider my institution, State University of Yogyakarta, and then you can choose doctor by research program, I think. So I feel more than happy to see you there and to work with you on some related research projects on language education topics at the State University of Yogyakarta. So no worries, please consider coming to my university in Yogyakarta. So here we go. I'd like to show my personal website so that you can visit and then read my works. Probably we have similar research topics, and then in the future we can work together on some research topic, and I feel more than happy to work with you. So just simply search on my name on Google Scholar or ResearchGate or even Sinta, provided by our Indonesian government. And I will be very, very happy if you read my works on some related topic which is related to English language teaching. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to start with this question for you. Take a look at this one. So today we're going to discuss about stories for language education research. And then I'd like to begin with this question. What do you think about stories? Can anyone give me answer? Or you can chat on the chat box, I guess. So what do you think about stories?
Ibu Husnul answered in the chat box, Pak Farooq.
All right. Okay, so sorry, I cannot see the chat here.
Okay.
Okay.
So let me read for you. Ibu Husnul Hatimah answered Wan Lining, perhaps it's for the picture. And then Ibu Faridatul Istilfaroh, she answered individual experience.
All right. Okay. Thank you for the answers. So I'm going to continue with this question. What about this? Personal chats. What do you think about personal chats?
It's more freely to share the experience in personal chat.
Okay, great. Thank you for the answer. And then we go with this one. Take a look at this one. Teeny Talks. What is Teeny Talks? Or how do you say in Bahasa Indonesia? Give me a simple word or phrase about Teeny Talks.
It's a kind of casual conversation that's
Exactly. Exactly. A very good answer, Ibu Husnul. Thank you for coming today. All right. Teeny Talks. It's concerned with a small talk. So let's imagine that stories or personal chats or small talks are used as a data for your research, especially if you are doing critical qualitative research. Traditionally, you use qualitative research, but today we are going to discuss the use of stories, personal chats, or even small talk in conducting critical qualitative research. Something which is quite different, I think, from the traditional one. So that's the point what I'm going to talk today with you. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is our agenda today. First, I'm going to talk about the philosophies of the use of the stories. in language education research or English language education or teacher education or even general education programs or initial teacher preparation programs. And next I'm going to talk about the histories and the birth of narrative inquiry. Then I'm going to go with the concept and design of narrative inquiry. And lastly, I'm going to talk about possible research topic, or let's say future research topic for narrative inquiry. So if you are interested in doing this research design, then I'm going to be very, very happy to work with you or to discuss with you some possible topic in the future. All right, here we go. Part 1, philosophical standpoints of using stories. All right, again, I'm going to start with a question. So first, is a truth single or multiple? Some of you might already know this, but I think some of you might not also know this actually. So is a truth single or multiple? What do you think? Can anyone answer this? Hello? Are you there with me?
Some of them answered in the chat box, Pak Farouk.
All right,
Let me
okay.
help you. Ibu Daisy from Unima answered multiple. And then Pak Eko Suhartoyo also answered multiple.
All right, thank you for the answers. Next question. Then, how do you believe a truth? These two questions are indicating how you are thinking of a research methodology or certain research design. And then I go with the next question. I need you to reflect on this. Is a truth represented by numbers, testing, or human experiences? So I think most of you will choose human experiences rather than numbers and testing, right? Because today we are talking about qualitative research methodology. But remember, I go with the next question. Who has the truth? So these questions are very, very essential if we want to know what narrative inquiry is and then how to use narrative inquiry for our research. And the last question is this one, a very, very common question in research methodology. Is objectivity in language education research really there? So what do you think with the last question? Can anyone give me an answer, please? You can write on the chat box or you can turn on your microphone and then say it simply.
I think it's more too subjective one, or we can say that narrative experts see the objectivity in different way.
Thank you. Very, very encouraging answer. So we're going to know the best or the appropriate response of this question later at the end of my talk. So I hope that we are together, improving how we are thinking about certain phenomena or certain points of view, right? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I go with this one. The philosophy in educational research or the philosophies in educational research methodology. Commonly, people know objectivism as a truth, as a single truth, right? And that it gives birth to positivism. And the next one, we go with constructivism, which is multiple truth, or we believe that the truth is multiple. But then what happens? Constructivism gives birth to interpretivism, which means that truth should be interpreted. So we give no way to objectivity here if we talk about constructivism. So this is at the very basic philosophies in educational research that we have to reflect on before we go to the next point, right? And then this is a very interesting point, subjectivism, which means that the truth is what we perceive. So it becomes more difficult if you want to conduct research, but then The truth that we believe depends on our own. The truth that we believe depends on other person's own. So we think that truth is not an objective thing, but truth is, truth belongs to everyone. Everyone has his or her own truth in our constructivism perspective. Then here we go. Stories. So stories are developed based on what we perceive actually. And then our work today, our plan is to use these stories as a data and research in a research methodology. So I hope that you are going to think of some key terms, so some common key terms in our educational research methodologies, such as validity, reliability, and so on next at the end of my talk, right? Ladies and gentlemen, stories are developed under subjectivism. So here is the philosophy that you need to think of. If you still believe that truth is not what you perceive, it means that you are not going to have a very good research project using stories. But if you think that truth is what you perceive, then you may use stories as a data in your research methodology. All right, I'm not going to talk about the right side, but I'm going to focus on the constructivism, interpretivism, subjectivism, and stories as a data in our narrative inquiry. Here we go. So why using stories? After we know the philosophical standpoints behind that, now the next question is, why using stories for our research or for our language education research? First of all, individuals live with stories. Do you agree with me or not? Or do you have something different to think of? Individuals live with stories. Just imagine our grandfather, our grandmother are telling many stories to us, and then we live with those stories. And the next one, the stories told by our grandfather or grandmother are shaping our life. The stories also are shaping our minds. So our mindset is shaped by the stories told by our grandfather, grandmother, or even our parents. Next, humans are storytellers. So just imagine that you tell stories every time, every week, every day, every year. If you gather with your colleagues at the cafeteria, for example, you tell story. When you meet with your friends, old friends, and then you each other are telling your own stories, your own experiences. So that's why humans are actually storytellers. So this is the reasons why using stories for our research project. Next, on the last point is stories are empowering. Just imagine that if you meet your friends and then your friends have a problem and then you listen to the problems and you listen to your friends talk, then you are going to have empowering feeling, or you are going to be empowered by stories, or even you are going to be inspired by stories told by your friends. So this is a very basic reasons why using stories for research. The work that we have to do is now to use stories to live, to use stories to shape our own mind. So this is the reason why story has been a very important discussion in language education research. I go with this quote by Professor King in 2003. Once a story is told, it cannot be called back. And once told, it is loose in the world. So you have to be careful with the stories that you tell. And you have to watch out for the stories that you upload. Remember that stories is not something usual, but stories has been a very significant thing in our life. And then I go with the second quote by Professor John Dewey. Please take a look at this one. So people are individuals and need to be understood such. but they cannot be understood only as individuals. They are always in relation, always in a social context. So the stories that you are telling to somebody else are not always in a vacuum, but they are related with social context. So this is what we are going to discuss in the next slide. Stories are always relational. Stories are always context specific. So there is something to discuss about context and relationship brings within the stories themselves. All right, ladies and gentlemen, now I go with the part 2, the histories and the birth of narrative inquiry. Like what I told you a few minutes ago, subjectivism, which is also grounded under post-structuralism. Some of you might already know this. And then the next, John Dewey was influenced by post-structuralism. So John Dewey, an American philosopher, has been a very influential scholar with his theory of learning and experiences in 1938. And then John Dewey next gave influence to Paul Kinghorn. By the way, have you ever heard about Paul Kinghorn? So he is a very, very influential scholar in the area of critical qualitative methodology. So Paul Kinghorn then create his theory, which is called as an individual psychology, which focuses on the individual universe. And Michael Connelly are two scholars who were influenced by Paul Kinghorn's works and John Dewey's work. So this is the first part of how narrative inquiry was then developed in 1990 and continued in 2006 with the term narrative inquiry. So I think this is a very important point for you to understand how scholars are influencing others years by years. And then after John Dewey influenced Paul Kinghorn, and Paul Kinghorn influenced Clendenin and Connelly in 1993 with the terms narrative inquiry. And the next one, the newly respected scholar in the area of narrative research is Professor Gary Bakuisen. So Bakuisen is actually coming in the late of 2008, and he continued his theory of using narrative research in 2014. So if you know Gary Bakuisen, I think this is good. But if you don't know Clendenin and Connelly as the founding father of narrative inquiry, I think you need to have more literature. We need to read more literature so that we know the flow, how narrative inquiry works actually. So by the way, Professor Gary Bakuisen has been very, very influential in our today's English language teaching research, because Professor Gary has been invited for several times to give a talk on narrative research. And he's very good at explaining the new models of narrative research. Okay, next, I'm going to explain about this letter in details. Clendenin and Connelly's narrative inquiry then focuses on three essential things. First is time, second, places, and third is socialities or interaction or social interaction. Gary Bakuisen actually has a rather similar key themes to explain data in narrative research by using what, why, when, where, and whom. So ladies and gentlemen, this is a very important if we know the big players in the field, or this is very important if we understand who are the big players, who the big players are in our narrative inquiry research methodology. All right, ladies and gentlemen, and now I'm going to talk more detail about narrative inquiry developed by Jean Clendenin and Michael Connelly. So perhaps later I'm going also to talk a little bit about the narrative inquiry or narrative research developed by Gary Paquison. But the two are just similar actually in some cases, but Clondinin and Connolly have been a very most influential scholars today in narrative inquiry. So I think explaining Clondinin and Connolly's work on narrative inquiry would be very practical today. Okay, so here we go. Concepts and design of narrative inquiry, part 3. All right, ladies and gentlemen, take a look at this one. So after we know the philosophies, after we know the histories, and then we go with the very basic concepts of narrative inquiry by Clondinin. So take a look at this one, the study of experiences as a story. So if you want to research experiences, be it personal or communal experiences, and then you make it as a story, then you use a narrative inquiry designed or developed by Clondinin and psychologist Michael Connolly. So experience as a story. Whatever you experience is a story based on Clondinin's remark. And when you already understand that experience is a story, what to research from your experiences? Take a look at this table, ladies and gentlemen. So Clondinin and Connolly used the term three-dimensional space. So three-dimensional space of narrative inquiry. So take a look at this one. We have interaction, we have continuity, or some scholars say this as temporality, which deals with times. And the next one is we have situation or place. Now we focus on the first thing, interaction. So there are 2 points in the interaction that you need to research when you are conducting narrative inquiry for your qualitative research method. First is personal and second is social. When you deal with personal issues, means that you delve into your research participants' lives or personal lives, such as feelings, hopes, aesthetic reactions, and moral disposition or values that intervene within the lives of your research participants. That's included as a personal point. And the next one is social aspect or social point. You have to look at the surroundings, the environment, and how the surroundings give influence in terms of feelings, intentions, purposes, assumptions, and mindset or points of view. So in social aspect, when you are conducting narrative inquiry, you need to also focus on the environment and how the environment give influence on your research participants' feelings, intentions, values, or life. And then we go to the next section, continuity. It deals with times. We have past, present, and future. So if you are conducting narrative inquiry, what you have to do next is you focus on the data from your research participant based on the times, past experiences, present experiences, and also future experiences or future narrative. What to do with past? Remember, stories are shaped by past time experiences. You cannot neglect this point because individuals live from time to time and then they live stories in the past. So you need to dig up, you need to delve into the stories in the past of your research participant. And after that, you go with the present experiences or present stories. What happened? What's going on today? What is happening now with the research participant, which related to the phenomena that you are investigating? And then you focus to the current experiences, feelings, or actions of an event. And after that, you go with the next point or aspect that is future experiences or future aspiration. What you have to do when you are in this stage is that you focus on possible future thinking of your research participant. So you focus on future experiences or future ideas of your research participant. So remember, in the continuity, you focus on past, present, and future aspects. And the last one is situation or settings of place. Remember that stories are happening in the middle of the places, of course. There is something to say about settings of place, context, or situation, physical landscape. For example, classroom activities, classroom corridor, university cafeteria, or teacher workshop for teacher professional or learning, for example. You need to also focus on these things. So interaction, continuity, and situation are the very important aspects when you are doing narrative inquiry. So this is based on Clarendon and Connelly's works. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we go to this one. I'd like to give you a quiz. I have a friend, Yudi, and then the topic of investigation today is Yudi's first year experiences in an English medium university in Australia. So please imagine, and then please do this work for a couple of minutes. Just imagine you are now conducting narrative inquiry in your classroom, in your qualitative classroom, for example, and then you are given these tasks by your lecturers to investigate personal experiences of an international graduate first-year student with regard to his experiences in the English medium university in Australia. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the quiz for you today. Please think of 3 aspects: interaction, and then continuity, and also place or situation. Things, what specific aspects that you have to focus on, or what specific aspects that you have to investigate with this topic. Okay, everyone, and then please, Ibu Moderator, could you please help me to invite the participant to work on this, and then you may chat your works on the chat box.
All right.
I give you 5 minutes.
Okay, dear participants, you have 5 minutes to answer Prof. Faruk's task, to do Faruk's task about Yudi's first year's experiences. So what are you going to research by having that kind of topic? You may directly answer by raising hand, or perhaps later you may also write down your answer in the chat box.
Okay, so I think 5 minutes is enough, Ibu Moderator.
5.
Yes.
Yes, 5 minutes.
5 minutes is enough, I think. So
Yeah.
please think of specific aspects that you have to investigate with this title, with this topic, using the 3-dimensional space of narrative inquiry. The first is interaction, the second is continuity, and then the last one is situation.
May I try?
This one, please.
Great. Okay.
It was very enlightening, Pak Faruk.
Okay. Ibu,
My
would you please
business.
mention your name and your affiliation before answering?
I am Husnul Khotimah from Universitas Negeri Malang.
Okay, Ibu Husnul.
Yeah,
Okay.
the topic is really interesting, and I can relate to my research project actually. And
Oh,
particularly
nice.
to us, I guess maybe in my
Maybe.
I would do a kind of research dealing with the student emotions. So first, in the interaction, I would ask about their personal. So look inward. How do the student feel personally when maybe she in her or his personal life, and then also when he deals with the classmate. That's for the social context. And for continuity, maybe I would ask about the initial months or days when he came to that university, and then back to the middle phase and the last phase maybe, and the place maybe at his emotion in the classroom or outside the classroom activities. Maybe, I don't know.
Okay, okay, Pak Farouk, Bu Husnul has given very complete answer regarding the task. So Bu Husnul will primarily concern on the emotion, especially in the interaction. She will deal with the personal life of the students, and also the social life of the students with the classmates. And then about she will also the context is within months or days, and about the experience at the university, the situation or the place, the setting is perhaps in the classroom.
Thank you very much. So I got a lot of answers actually from Pak Saiful Islam. Are you there with us today?
Yeah.
From Pak Afandi. Oh, Pak Afandi from Universitas Negeri Padang, right?
Yeah, Mr. Farouk.
Yes, Pak Farouk. Nice to see you again.
Okay. Thank you for the answers, and also Ibu Husnul, thank you. Very encouraging answers. I think you know a lot about this research design. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's check together what specific aspects that we could have with this topic for our narrative inquiry using the three-dimensional phase of narrative inquiry by Clendenen and Michael Connelly. First, interaction. The aspect that you may have is, first, feelings as an international graduate TESOL student in Australia. Yes, interaction. Remember, the first thing that you need to focus is personal feeling or personal idea, all right, in terms of interaction. And then the second aspect, still with personal thing or personal section, is feelings of living abroad independently, which is different from living in his home country, of, for example, right? So I think this is a bit similar with what Ibu Husnul's answer actually, but I explained with a different sentence or different vocabulary. The next is continuity. Remember, you have three aspects that you need to focus on: past, present, and future. For past experiences, you can focus on the experience in home country, which is different from living in Australia, of course. And then you need, and the second one, you need to focus on the experiences of his prior learning. For example, before he went to Australia, and then he learned at the private schools or university in Indonesia, for example, which is quite different. The circumstances are quite different from learning in Australian university or Australian higher education. That's past experiences. And then for present experiences, you can have classroom participation. All right, present events, present activities, classroom participation, or power relation with supervisors, the ongoing relationship with supervisors. And for the next aspect, in terms of continuity, is future aspiration. It deals with future idea. What would he do in the next time after graduating from the Australian universities? So you need to focus on such aspect. And then the last one is interaction. Oh, sorry, this is not interaction actually. I mistyped, but this is a situation or place or settings of place, right? So you can investigate anything related to places where UD is doing the activity as an international TESOL graduate student in Australia, in the classroom, university cafeteria, for example, you need to focus on whether there is a possible issues of ethnicity conflicts or anything else. You need to also focus or delve into his stories or life when Yuri lives in the apartment as an international graduate student and etc. So these all are the ways how we construct the design of narrative inquiry by investigating stories using Clendenin and Connolly's works. Three-dimensional space of narrative inquiry. We have interaction. Remember, we have continuity as well, and we have places. All right, three important points. Next, ladies and gentlemen, these are the very commonly used genre in narrative inquiry. The very commonly used genre in narrative inquiry. First, life history. And life history will have to do with many branches under life history, but I cannot explain this one by one, right? So life history is also a part of narrative inquiry. The second one is photo voice or photo elicitation, which is getting more famous in the last 2 or 3 years in English language education research. You can read a lot of literature that use photo voice nowadays on Google Scholar or on some ELT journals written by Indonesian ELT lecturers. I believe you may find this very easily on databases. And the third one, the very commonly used genre in narrative inquiry is autoethnography. So we have life history, we have photo voice, we have also autoethnography. I'm going to explain this later in the next slide. So, samples of life history. Remember that life history will have to do with a very large data of your research participants' life. And of course, this research cannot be carried out within 2, 3, or 4, or even 6 months. My dissertation, by the way, is using life history. And, you know, I'm exploring the life of my research participants, 6 research participants within a year and 2 months, if I'm not mistaken, right? So life history will have to do with a very long journey of data collection and data storage. You will have to do with a lot of personal stories told by the participants. Even when you are listening to a negative stories from participants, you will tend to be influenced by the personal and negative experiences of the participants. So please be careful when you are using life history in narrative research. And the right side is my master degree thesis. I also used a life history with only 1 research participant. So life history, in my mind, is best used for a quite long research data collection, like dissertation or even thesis, if this is possible for you who are currently planning to do a master's degree. And the second one is autoethnography. This one written by Professor Heath Rose. Professor Heath Rose is a very, very well-known scholar in the area of EIL, or English as an International Language, from Oxford University. Look at the article here. So this is the 2 stories combined between Heath Rose himself with his colleague, Anu Chaya Montakantiwong from Thailand. So this is the stories of theirs, which are combined into a duo ethnography. On another occasion, we also have digital autoethnography. So in autoethnography, we have duo ethnography. We also have digital autoethnography. Digital means the data were taken from maybe WhatsApp chats or Zoom recorded file and etc. But here, duo ethnography means two researchers are telling their own stories, and then they analyze their own stories, and then they write their own stories into a research paper. So this is how narrative inquiry works actually. So just imagine that narrative inquiry is actually a large branch of arts-based research. So if you have friends studying PhD in Australia or in UK, for example, they will have a courses on arts-based research. And under that, they are studying narrative inquiry with photo voice or autoethnography or digital autoethnography. Next one is photo voice. I really like this research design because it gives us a reflection based on photos as a file. As a story. Take a look at this one. Ahmad's photo voice. So this is a part of the recently published article that I would like to show you at the end of my talk. So this is a part of the data analysis, and take a look at this one. There is a context, reasons, and emotion. And on the right side, there is a picture taken by Ahmad. Ahmad is the research participant. And then Ahmad was asked by the researcher to explain how the photo reflects his personal experiences in preparing a lesson plan as a teacher candidate or pre-service teacher. So, ladies and gentlemen, could you please help me to read some sentences from this picture? Let me ask the help of, my colleague here. Ibu Lutfia, are you there with us today? Sorry, Ibu Lutfia from Universitas Swadaya Gunung Jati, Jawa Barat. Are you with us now, Ibu Lutfia? Oh, I think Ibu Lutfia is away from us today. No worries. Please, anyone help me to read this? Let me ask the help of Ibu Fitri. Ibu Fitri Awaliatus Salihah, please help me. Read the context, reason, and emotion.
Please unmute Ibu Fitri.
Maybe I would like to help.
Oh, Pak Eko Suhartoyo.
Yeah.
While waiting for Ibu Fitri, perhaps.
Please.
The context here is this photo was taken in one of the malls in Tangerang City. It was when I was looking for some inspiration for my final report. When looking for something in the mall, I saw one of the paintings that made me interested. It showed the mouth that there were a lot of animals in his or her mouth. It reflected that there are a lot of ideas that I really want to speak about. The kinds of animals represented my ideas in writing about teaching EFL in online learning. Hence, this is what I felt about in my mind when painting in the picture. When my lecturer asked me to write a lesson plan about teaching EFL online using the new curriculum policy, Merdeka Belajar, it made me confused because of some reasons. Like I don't know really, I really don't know the new curriculum about, and second, the pandemic forced us to study at home. For some days, I spent the time to read some papers and gain more information about them. The picture reflected as a teacher, I have a voice to create and modify the lesson plan based on the student's need. For example, using one of the apps in teaching EFL is English Central to deliver my teaching activities to simplify the process. Kinds of animals reflect the students' activities properly during classroom interaction. Even to assess the students' meet of learning objective, I can improve it by myself, and it's really makes me and it is really making it sense.
All right, thank you very much, Michael, for reading. A very nice reading. So, ladies and gentlemen, photo voice is a part of narrative inquiry that uses photo as a document, photo as a data. So you will have to ask your research participants to take a photo that they like, that they favor of, and you also ask your research participant to reflect on what the photo relates to his or to her personal experiences. So photo voice has been a very, very emerging research design nowadays in Indonesian ELT research and publication. So I believe that you will be very, very interested in using photo voice as your research project, be it thesis or even research for publication. All right, now we go with the next slide. So after I explain you the concepts and the design, which focuses on the definitions of narrative inquiry and also how each types of narrative inquiry is used. Now I'd like to go with this one. The role of the researcher and the participant. Look, when you are as a researcher, you have to be a very good listener for your research participant stories, because your research participant working as a narrator. So you just need to listen to the stories silently, and then after that you need to focus on some points that relate with your research question. That's what we call as collaborative work. So you and your research participant will have to work collaboratively to construct meaning from a story. So meaning is co-constructed between you as a between you as a researcher with your research participants. And next one, also another type of how we should collect the data. So let's take a look at this one. First, interviewing. So in narrative inquiry, the data could be gathered using interviewing. Please note, interview is different from interviewing. Interview is different from interviewing. If you do interview, means that you just simply ask question and then relate the answer to your research question. Simply as that. But if you do interviewing, means that you go beyond that. You do not only focus on certain prepared questions, but you also focus on the meaning behind the stories told in the interviewing activities. So interviewing is a very commonly used as a data collection method in narrative inquiry. And next, you can also use photo, like what I told you a few minutes ago. You can also use personal chats from WhatsApp, for example, or Telegram. You can also use diaries, reflective journals, screenshots, artifacts. For example, you are teaching online learning, and then you have, something like a recorded video of your teaching activities or your students' learning activities, and then you can screenshot the files, and then you can include this as a part of your narrative inquiry data. And the last one, data in narrative inquiry could also be obtained from video recorded artifacts. So like Zoom-based recording is also very, very significant actually if you want to use the recordings as data in your research using narrative inquiry. Now we go with this one. After you collect the data, you analyze the data. And some scholars will have different points of view on how data should be analyzed in narrative inquiry. So some of them use analysis of narrative, and some other scholars will use narrative analysis. So these are two different things. Analysis of narrative has to do with thematic analysis, a very traditional way of analyzing data in qualitative actually. And you also need to do this if you use analysis of narrative. But then if you use narrative analysis, means that you turn the data into a complete story. you don't have to use themes. You don't have to focus on emerging themes in analyzing the data, but you just need to focus on the whole complete story and how the story is going on. There should be a plot, there should be a problem, there should be a critical incident, there should be resolution, for example, and so on. So such kinds of narrative analysis is commonly used by literature researchers actually, but in ELT research and publication, some scholars have been using a narrative analysis for quite long actually. So maybe at the end of my talk, I could show you some article that use the data analysis with the framework of a narrative analysis, turning the data into a complete story.
Sorry, Pak Farouk.
Yes.
I have to remind you that you have 15 more minutes to go.
All right, give me more 15 minutes. Thank you. Thank you. So this is the first way of how to analyze the data. And then the second way, you can follow Barkhuizen's work. Barkhuizen preferred using narrative frames. So take a look at this frame. In the past, means past experiences. When I first came to New Zealand, my English was blah, blah, blah. You can use this narrative frame easily, I think, if you want to collect the data with your students or graduate students in the classroom. You just need to revise this based on your context of the research. When I first came to this university, for example, my English was blah, 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 blah. That's how past experiences was collected by using Barkhuizen's work. And next is present. So this is also a narrative frame that you may use for collecting the data if you follow Barkhuizen's narrative research. And then next is in the future. So past, present, and future experiences are grouped into one page or 2 pages of narrative frames. So here you go. You can access this article freely in system, but if you can't, just contact me. I'm feeling more than happy to give you some narrative inquiry articles. So this is the story that I collected from my research participant last year. And then I listened to the story told by Uni, a pseudonym. I really enjoy the personal experiences of Uni. And then I found a very, very interesting experiences that Uni had a couple of years ago back in her senior high school. This is also my second participant that I did last year, an interview with Rudy. I tried to learn how Rudy's English language learning fluctuated, or what things that motivate Rudy to take English education department. And then I used this data as a story for my narrative research. Well, we go to the last part 4. Research topic for narrative inquiry. So here we go. I'd like to show you this one. If you want to read this article, you just need to contact me, and then I'm going to give you many, many narrative inquiry articles. So stories of how English teachers in Asia develop resilience during the pandemic. You need to adapt to this research topic if you want to use a very good narrative inquiry. The second one is coming from my student, investigating dual role as a part-time and university student. I think this is a very interesting topic done by my student in the classroom in our qualitative research methodology class. This is also another topic for you. So I hope that you are interested to expand more research topic based on what I'm presenting today. Silent student in the EFL classes using narrative inquiry. And this one also by Rui Yuan, a very well-known scholar in the area of identity. And next is possible topic by Anna, which focuses on the English language literacy experiences of an African language teacher. So ladies and gentlemen, before I end my slide, I give you this question. After I discuss a lot of things about narrative inquiry, I come up with this question. What if participants don't tell the truth in narrative inquiry? I need you to answer this, or I need you to discuss this with me after this. And the second question is this one. Can I do a thesis or dissertation with only 1 or 2 participants? I think I showed you the ones a few minutes ago, but you need to discuss this more. Writing thesis or even dissertation using 1 or 2 research participants. We come to the end of my talk, and here is the closing quote from Professor Bell. Narrative inquiry is, remember, narrative inquiry is more than just telling stories. More than just telling stories. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ibu Moderator.